adventurers once again to Let's Play ChäoS. And in the last episode, Takumi built up his courage and finally made it to the O-front building, reaching the very rooftop, where he found a certain person waiting for him, a shadowy individual claiming to be the mysterious Shogun. However, as even Takumi has noticed, there are certain details that separate this Shogun from the one he encountered in the Shibuya scramble in the previous month. First and foremost, while this person is using a wheelchair, he is also using some sort of distortion device to hide his voice, something that the actual Shogun never did previously. Second of all, up until now, Shogun's replies have usually been very short and concise, but the recent messages from Shogun have actually been rather lengthy, again suggesting a different temperament to the original. And third and foremost, this Shogun is doing his best to conceal himself in the shadows, whereas the previous Shogun eventually revealed himself to Takumi again during that fateful encounter in the Shibuya scramble. These and many more points of interest pretty much should allude to what we already know, which is this Shogun is an imposter who is trying to lure Takumi out. Unfortunately, he has managed to do so in the most underhanded method of kidnapping Takumi's sister Nanami, and to add insult to injury, actually severed her right arm and sent it to Takumi as a present. Although he claims otherwise, I believe that he is trying to engage in mind games to mess with Takumi's head. But unfortunately, whoever this individual is, he seems to know not just about what happened at the flower bed and Ayase Kishimoto's incident, but a lot more besides, and we have been falling into every single mind trap possible. I want to go home. I want to go shut myself up in my base and marathon Ensu endlessly. Unfortunately, this pretender wants us to play Ensu in reality in order to try and rescue Nanami, but rather than that, he also wants to utilize Takumi's unique ability for nefarious purposes. Unfortunately, utilizing said power is a feat easier said than done, and unfortunately, if Takumi can't do it, then he isn't going to be able to rescue Nanami, which is an outcome that we cannot afford to get. I want to look at serotonin figures until I can't stop grinning, and I want to keep watching Bloodshot over and over, even though that was all I desired.
Taki, 早く逃げて。私がずっと一緒にいてあげる。私だけがタッキーの味方なの。
You were correct up until that last statement there, Sarah.
だから帰ろう。三次元とのつながりなんて断ち切って楽しいことだけして生きよう。
さて、前置きはこれぐらいにして、そろそろクエストを始めよう。
Unfortunately, we still have to deal with this imposter, whoever he is, because we don't have any other choice.
まずは下のスクランブル交差点がよく見えるところまで行ってほしい。
逃げなきゃ。このままじゃ本当に殺されちゃうよ。
I don't think there is an escape.
聞こえなかった？スクランブル交差点を見下ろせるところへ移動するんだ。
His tone was soft, but his voice had an incredibly chilly quality to it. A voice so fine-tuned that it seemed to take the energy I needed to resist him and rip it out by the words.
何を？
My legs trembled, and I couldn't walk. I hugged myself. I'd even lost the ability to judge whether or not I should heed what he was saying.
僕の言うことが聞けない。従ってもらわないと、ナナミちゃんの命は保証できないよ。
I doubt you'd be able to do the same even if he did obey you.
どうせもう死んじゃってるよ。タッキーが今から頑張ったってただの無駄死にだよ。
However, he is right in saying that she isn't quite dead yet. If she were, then there would, as grisly as it would be, there would be no real point in pursuing Takumi any further, or being able to manipulate him as such.
ナナミの声聞かせて。
I struggled to squeeze out a cracking voice, but Shogun instantly brushed aside my plea.
その必要はないよ。君はもう少し今の状況を考えた方がいい。
Yeah. We're stuck. I didn't want to think Nanami had died. I didn't want to picture a dead Nanami. I was scared that once I pictured her, it had become real. Resigning myself, I did as Shogun had said and began walking for a better view of the scramble crossing. The area at my feet was dark, and I'd trip if I didn't proceed with caution. The side of the roof closest to the pedestrian scramble had a transparent acrylic plate jutting up on like a wall. It was roughly 3 stories high. As I neared that wall, I came to hear a roar from the crossing below me. A single female voice had particularly caught my ear, but apparently it was coming from the jumbo front mounted on a nearby building.
アクリル板の壁に一箇所だけ壊れて穴が開いている部分があるだろ。
Wiping cold sweat off my forehead, I examined the hole quickly. One place had a hole, about large enough for one person to enter while standing. It was shaped unnaturally, like it had been smashed. It being broken was evidently the work of human hands. Yet another indication that all of this was premeditated. And there was nothing beyond the hole, of course. A sheer cliff straight down to the concrete 8 stories below.
そこから顔を出して下にいるギャラリーに挨拶してあげて。
Oh dear. I'm starting to believe that this man right here was the one responsible for the crowds of people outside. He probably fed them a different story, too. What did he just say?
もう一度言おうか。その穴から身を乗り出して下にいる人たちに手を振ってあげてほしい。
ほら、あいつタッキーを殺す気なんだって。
My breath caught. Was this how he made 5 people jump off? It was as Serotan had said after all. I had no other option but to die as well. I had to jump from here. Not entirely out of options though.
そんなの嫌だ。
拒否すればナナミちゃんは死ぬよ。
従えばタッキーは死んじゃうよ。
What was I supposed to do? I thought about taking the best possible course of action, but delusions of the worst case scenario for all kinds of potential patterns churned around and around in my head, and I couldn't get my brain working properly. Save me, somebody. But sadly, that won't work this time, not even with Remy.
鬼のバーカ。
Nanami's voice echoed in my panicked ears.
ヒヒバーカ。
She's not wrong there. Nanami flickered before my eyes, smiling and gesturing casually, which is only going to make things a hell of a lot worse. It was my fault. Nanami had absolutely nothing to do with it, yet Shogun had abducted her and cut off her arm because of me. He might claim otherwise, but, We know it to be the truth. It is not a delusion. It is not fake. I'm sorry, Nanami. I'm sorry. I wiped my tears, but still more overflowed even so, and I wiped them again. And I steadily drew closer to the broken open hole in the midst of my fogging field of sight, and tentatively took a look out at the ground. Without any warning, a huge cheer burst up, one that resembled the rumbling of the earth. Well, he has us entirely where he wanted us, as he said in his email, to capture this entire event on television, which means that Takumi's private and personal life has been completely and absolutely obliterated. Even if he manages to somehow get out of this and return to the abode of the shipping container, Takumi's casual lifestyle is effectively over from this point forward. Never again will he be able to hide in the depths of obscurity and anonymity. The vast herd had gathered in the plaza, and the media. The ones who gathered for some event that was preparing to begin at just the same time. An onslaught of dazzling light hit me. I automatically narrowed my eyes and turned my face away. Yeah, about that sentiment in the last episode where you said that it was curious that all the spotlights were on you. Yeah, you weren't wrong about that. Which brought the Jumbotron building next door into view. And without any room for doubt, the thing projected there was me. Me. In other words, Takumi Nishijo himself. Reflected on the Jumbotron, my face was sloppy with tears, and I had my mouth half open like a dumbass. On top of that, my back was hunched. At first I thought it was a hallucination. Unfortunately, this is no delusion. Next I had chills, thinking it was a recording of me that had been secretly filmed somewhere. That isn't a recording, that is real-time filming. Going further, I began to suspect the film Shogun had taken of my thoughts was being played back there. None of which is true. At last, I realized it showed me here, in this place, at this very moment. The live video running on the Jumbotron even came with sensationalistic taglines. 100% live broadcast from Shibuya Station. The miracle Esper boy makes his debut. Our captor has really been making our job harder for us. A ribbon of explanatory text scrolled along the bottom of the screen. A miraculous Esper boy introduced to us by the world-class psychic Yuri Brightman. His urgent live performance. Can he scry the identity of the new gen perp? Well, if we weren't already in a hole, we are now, because if whoever is holding us captive wants us to actually discern the truth about the new gen criminal, he knows obviously too well that it is fundamentally impossible. And of course, it goes without saying, if we were actually able to do this, then he would have no choice but to kill us outright for exposing the truth, of which we still don't have a grasp on quite yet. When I read it, I understood at last. The media crews and rubberneckers gathering at the scramble crossing were all watching me. Don't look at me. Why are you scrutinizing someone like me? Esper boy. What the hell? Do you all understand what kind of day it's been? A very harrowing one at that. And there are a number of things we can do, but I don't think a delusion is going to get us out of this mess. An earthquake occurred, man. Magnitude 5. Over 100 people died. Yet why is everyone lying in wait and getting worked up over an otaku freak like me? Sorry to burst your bubble, ladies and gentlemen. But Nanami. Yeah.
どうせ生意気なナナミッチのことだからさ。ここでタッキーが頑張って助けたって感謝してくれなさそうじゃん。
I think she actually would be being rescued. I took a sharp breath as Sarah's words cut to the core of the matter. True enough, regardless of whether I bet my life to help her, Nanami would definitely say,
お兄のせいでこんな目にあったんだからね。バカ。
and she wouldn't be wrong about that. In fact, you yourself admitted it not too long ago. But she would be grateful. Forget thanking me, on the contrary, she'd exterate me. I'd be compelled to live out my life even with my family despising me. Whatever else there was to say about it, Nanami was ultimately my 3D little sister. I didn't mow over her, and she didn't have the lovely soul of a 2D character. She was always looking down at me and secretly, no blatantly, making a fool out of me. It wasn't any of my business what happened to such an impertinent sister. Serotan was one thing, but it wasn't worthwhile to gamble my life on a shitty little sister like her. Something ultimately tells me that no matter which path we went down, this result would result in convergence.
タッキー、自分のことだけ考えよう。私はさ、タッキーに死んでほしくないな。こうしてずっとタッキーの脳内で二人きりでお話し続けたいんよ。
Didn't I just tell you that now wasn't the time for ridiculous delusions, Takumi Nishijo? Me too. I'm never as calm as when I'm talking to Serotan. I don't give a crap about Nanami. Bad move, old man. Bad move.
死にたくない。
Yeah, even if we had managed to pluck the so-called answer out of thin air, it would have only been a delusion.
痛いのは嫌だ。死ぬのは嫌だ。消えるのは嫌だ。ナナミがどうなろうと、僕は痛くも痒くもない。
Are you really so sure about that, Takumi? Especially given what's just happened? I muttered, as though to persuade myself. Unfortunately, it seems that Takumi is pretty much at the end of his rope. And no matter which way you slice it, Takumi has probably failed the so-called quest. The one on the right wasn't Shogun, it was
あ
Serotan.
の剣は剣に見えるだけで剣じゃない。ただの光の反射とか目の錯覚だ。
Wait a minute. What looks like a sword?
そうだよ。さあ、帰ろう。帰ったらさ、 私のパンツ見ながらいっぱいオナニーしていいから。
僕帰る。帰ってセーラタンでハーハーするよ。
嬉しいな。タッキーのためにエッチなポーズたくさんしてあげるね。
I slowly pulled back my outstretched hand. That alone made me feel very much at peace. I took Serotan out of my pocket and contemplated her smile. As long as I had Serotan's forgiveness, I didn't need anything else. What about Nanami's forgiveness, or Rimi's for that matter, or any of the others? None of them would ever forgive you for giving up on Nanami's life, Takumi. I sniffed the stuff running up from my nose. I veered around and walked up to Shogun.
誰が動いていいと許可した？
I don't think he gives a crap anymore either way.
クエストはまだクリアしていないぞ。
僕は勇者なんかじゃない。妹一人救えないようなヘタレな妹だよ。僕に期待しないで。僕を見ないで。僕をそっとしておいて。
ではナナミちゃんは殺すことにするよ。
Unfortunately, despite the words that he'd been saying, despite everything that he'd been thinking right until now, Takumi, if Nanami dies, her blood is on your hands.
どうせもう死んでる。
She was already dead. Shogun had brutally murdered her. Tomorrow they report about it all over the place as the 6th new gen case. It saddened me, but I couldn't do anything about it. And one of Takumi's very own delusions is at work. Oh dear. The sound of water dripping. It wasn't a rivulet of water. Nanami's blood. Pure red blood trickling from the stump of her wrist.
なんで助けてくれなかったの？
Because unfortunately it is as Takumi says, he is a miserable human being.
鬼って最低。
Of course, that was Takumi's delusions of his own imagining. I screamed at the top of my lungs. The world went crimson. Fury and grief and shame ground my thoughts to a pulp. I charged blindly at Shogun. I grabbed at him, still sitting in the shadows. But it was less of a physical response than I'd expected. I fell headlong together with the wheelchair. I must have hit my knee. Pain shot through it. Grimacing, I looked about in confusion for the person who had been sitting in the wheelchair. A head had tumbled down by my feet. I gingerly reached for it. It was very hard. Rather than a once-living head, it was clearly something akin to a helmet.
これ
A pitch-black helmet.
ChäoS スパイダー。
I think we might have been played. I think perhaps either our friend did a Houdini vanishing trick. Anyway, we're on to Chapter 7, Psychopath. As I was saying, either our good friend did a Houdini and vanished, or he was never there to begin with, which makes this doubly frustrating. But at the start of Chapter 7, this is going to mark the end of this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Head. And when we return, adventurers, we shall see what new horrors await us in this unfolding chapter. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.